my name is Rad Yeo, although you may know me better as Rad. I'm a TV presenter, a video game critic, all-round cool guy, and I'm going to be hosting today's event. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we each are this evening. For me, that's the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I'd like to acknowledge their ongoing connection to the beautiful lands and waters that are here. The State Library of Western Australia acknowledges the traditional owners of country throughout Western Australia and their continuing connection to land and culture. The State Library is honoured to be located on the Whadjuk country, the ancestral lands of the Noongar people. Thank you for attending this evening's virtual event. Thanks for the bits. This is part of the Disrupted series produced by the State Library of Western Australia. Through Disrupted, the State Library aims to disrupt people's expectations of libraries and give access to new ideas and conversations. It's just like the hit 90s cartoon Arthur said, having fun isn't hard if you've got a library card. So tonight's event is about live streaming culture and the impact that Twitch has had on individuals, gaming, and entertainment. It's an opportunity to listen to streamers talking about their experiences and ideas and to participate in that conversation by asking questions through YouTube comments, Twitch chat, or by scanning the QR code that, am I on the right side? Yeah, I am. On this handy little QR code that you can see right there. We appreciate our guests for giving us their time and insights, so please remember to be respectful in chat and note that tonight we will be focusing not on the specifics of revenue from Twitch streaming or our guests' personal lives. Now, I would like to introduce our guests, or rather have them introduce themselves. Here they are. Let's start with Haughty Chicken. How are you? And tell us about yourself.
I am very, very well, and thank you for introducing me first. If you'd like, sorry, I'll start again. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the area where I live, and it's actually the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, because I'm actually based in Melbourne. And so for me, it's very important. They are the traditional custodians of the land on which I live and which I work, and actually all my family live and work. I pay my respects to the elders past and present, and extend that respect to all of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are joining us this evening. So hi, how are you?
So how did you get streaming? What do you stream? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I stream on Twitch. I'm actually a partner on Twitch, and I started during the pandemic. I had a little bit of downtime, and a friend of mine was streaming, and he said, "Why don't you try this?" And I thought, "Oh no, that's not going to happen." And then I thought, I'll just see if there's someone like me, and I'll watch them for a little while. And I looked on Twitch, and I couldn't find any older streamers, and I thought there might be a bit of a gap there. So I said to my husband, I'm going to stream.
I like how you're like, I had a little bit of a downtime. It was a pandemic, didn't we all? And what kind of thing do you stream?
I stream games, and I stream games from a casual point of view. There's high-end gaming and raid tier type gaming that's quite intense. And I was looking for a space where people could come and chat while I gamed, and also talk about mental health and just generally be in a chill space as opposed to anything that was more intense. So I stream a variety of different games. Yeah.
I love that. Wonderful. Let's meet our next contestant, Nick. Tell us about yourself. Who are you? What do you stream?
Hey, my name's Nick Ritchie, or known on Twitch as Lightfoot Rogue. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, of which I am joining, and extend my respects to any First Nations people in the call. I'd like to acknowledge the hardships that First Nations people have had to endure so that I can have a platform today to talk to you all. On Twitch, I stream a variety of stuff, but for Twitch, for me, isn't about the game that I stream. It's about the community that I develop. I am very strongly interested in making sure that I'm developing a community of queer folk and First Nations people so that they have a place to just have a yarn and kick their feet up.
I love that. A yarning, foot kicking good time. You can steal that. You can steal that and put that up on your stream. I'll allow it.
Yeah, we'll put on a shirt.
Yeah. 100%. And finally, our final guest, well, not final because we're all talking in tandem, but the final guest that we're meeting is Eilish. Tell us about yourself.
Hello. I would also like to acknowledge the land that I'm on today. I live in Melbourne, which is the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And I live in a beautiful part of town right near the river. And I just also want to acknowledge that it's really special to share stories and build relationships on this land. I feel really honored to do so tonight. So yeah, it's been really lovely. I'm Eilish. I am a musician and I took to Twitch last year in the pandemic, and it's pretty much changed my whole life since then.
I love that you've left it a little mysterious. You're like, you have to ask me more. Well, so Nick, how long have you been streaming? Because both Eilish and HC started during the pandemic. Did you start prior to that?
Yeah, actually. So it's actually quite an interesting story because my first stream was actually kind of in 2016. I was playing around with it, but I didn't quite hit because I was busy with university. And then I went to a PAX in 2018, met a few people. I wound up at a bar filled with streamers by accident. Met a few of them.
Classic PAX stuff.
Classic pack stuff, and they said get into streaming, and so I've been going since October 2018.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
So Eilish, you're the only one that hasn't really told us yet. What prompted you to start streaming?
Well, to be honest, as a musician, the last 2 years have been very difficult because there's been no live shows, there's been no touring, and musicians gain their income from touring mostly these days. So to have no touring was a real blow. And I didn't want to just kind of sit around and be sad and lose connection to my fans and kind of stagnate, I suppose, in terms of growing new fans and growing a new fan base, which is something that live shows obviously always allowed me to do. So I decided I always loved Twitch. I watch a lot of drag queens on Twitch who play horror games. There's a lot of people in the chat will probably know that there's a huge community of that on Twitch, and I can't get enough. So I knew what Twitch was, and I knew there was a music community on there. So I was like, you know what? I reckon that I should start this. I got time. I mean, we all have time now that we're all stuck inside, but yeah, that's how I got into it.
So what was the learning curve like? And I want you to all answer this for starting to stream, because Eilish, it sounds like it probably would have been fairly steep. You came from a music background, which isn't necessarily as imbued in the tech and the streaming side of things. Nick, it sounds like you're a gamer through and through, little PAX, goer over there. And I was going to say PAX fan, aren't we all? But PAX fan there. And Horty, it sounded like as well, excuse me, it was something fairly new for you. So what was that learning curve like, kind of picking it up? Horty, you can go first.
I picked up the technical side fairly quickly, did some research for about 3 weeks before I pressed go live. For me, it was learning how to network, how to market myself. How do I go from zero to having an audience? How do I find my community? And how do I advertise myself? How do I market myself as a brand? Because I came from an academic space, and so I had no idea about selling myself really in this way. How do I market what I do? So that was probably and still is a learning curve. But getting better.
What about you, Eilish?
It's funny, there's a little bit of crossover in terms of microphones, computer specs and things like that when it comes to because I have I've been making music on my computer for a long time. So it's kind of that crossover wasn't so bad, but the whole before we went live, we were talking about stream keys, and that was a whole thing. Just OBS, I was like, girl, I don't know. So that was a big learning curve, all of that stuff. And I felt at that time, kind of similar to HC, I didn't really have, I really had to seek it out myself, all of this knowledge. I didn't have anyone in my personal real life kind of community that I could be like, hey, have you ever used OBS? They'd be like, no, I have not. What are you trying to do? Which was really empowering, actually, especially as like a woman, which is like a whole other thing. But yeah.
And Nick, was I correct in my assumption that it came to you fairly easily?
Yeah, I was a like gamer through and through. It's something that I grew up with, and for me, it was pressing stream on the PlayStation straight to Twitch, and that's how I started. Going straight from the PlayStation, and it was a few months later where I was like, okay, what is this OBS? How does it work? What is a stream key?
Look, I will say though, the streaming straight from PlayStation actually works surprisingly well. It's not that bad.
Yeah, it worked well. I had my microphone all hooked up through the PlayStation, and I started just like that. The biggest learning curve that I've found was being able to just find myself on Twitch and bringing my own identity onto Twitch as a queer black person. So it was quite an interesting journey on a different platform for me.
I love that both you, Nick, and you, Horty, have touched on something that I kind of didn't expect, which I really should have, which is the fact that the learning curve isn't just about the technical side of streaming, although I think that that can seem very daunting. It's a lot of that social side. And, you know, I know that social side is a really big part of streaming. It's why a lot of people watch. They want that community that Nick has been talking about. But what was it like kind of throwing yourself into essentially what is the public eye and learning how to deal with that and navigate that? Because it's very strange and different if that's not your current world.
Difficult. And I think you learn about boundaries very, very quickly, or you need to learn about boundaries very quickly. I'm now in, 2 years now, and I often say to new streamers, put your boundaries in. Don't be afraid to put them in, because you need to be able to protect yourself and also protect the people that you're dealing with. And I think the fact that we're all streaming during a pandemic adds a whole other layer, because people not only want that social connection, they want somewhere to come to share their experiences, and they're not always, really, they're not happy stories. A lot of people are in really vulnerable spaces. And so being a streamer at the moment has that added level of responsibility in handling that, I think. Managing it is probably a better word.
Yeah, it sounds like heavy stuff, and you don't necessarily come to something like streaming with the tools to be able to handle those sorts of interactions.
Mm-hmm.
Eilish, how did you find it? You know, coming from a music background, you would probably, I'm assuming, be quite familiar with a little bit of that sort of adoration that can come from strangers. Did you find it similar, different in stream, or was it something that you had to deal with before or not?
God, that is like such a huge question, and I really identify with what HC was saying just then, because you do, like, in some ways I did have some experience with like enforcing some boundaries in my real life, like with people who enjoy my music. Like, I'm a very, very open book. Like, I share a lot about my own mental health and a lot about my life and my relationships and all this stuff, which I think kind of, I really enjoy the relationship that I have with the people who listen to my music. Streaming added this really intimate new level to my relationship with the public, I suppose. Because the sense of community is so strong. And when you're sitting in front of a camera for like 3+ hours, you can't help but be yourself. I mean, I can't. And you can't help but like be raw and vulnerable, and just, you can't, I don't have the energy to keep up a wall, But I did learn very quickly, probably not as quickly as I should have, but quickly enough, from advice from other bigger streamers, and my own community, that there are some personal, emotional boundaries that you just have to put up because you're not a trained mental health professional. And like HC was saying, for your own benefit and for the benefit of the person who is sharing with you, it's really important to kind of very clearly lay out how much you love to share and where the kind of boundaries, the personal boundaries are. And I think a lot of community members are really, really good at respecting that. It's only like once in a blue moon that those boundaries get crossed. But you know what? It's like, then you just remind, it's like, here's my boundary. And then it's usually like, cool, no worries, won't happen again. You know, it's hard though. It's hard to learn.
Yeah, I think you touched on something that I personally find really interesting in terms of streaming, that it does feel much more intimate than a lot of other kind of parasocial relationships that can be built. So those relationships where there's a stranger who feels like they know somebody else because they learn so much about their life and they see so many of their social media posts, etc. But streaming is, you know, quite a bit more intimate than reading someone's Twitter feed. You have a direct line to them in that exact point in time. They are there and they're paying attention to you sometimes. They'll read your messages and there's a much more direct connection, which is, you know, a whole huge part of why it's attractive and wonderful to audiences. But do you find that that does open up I guess, greater door for people to potentially push boundaries?
I mean, yeah, it does. It's a very intimate thing to invite somebody into your home, essentially. I don't know any streamers that stream from not their home. But like, you are inviting somebody into your personal space, and it really is an interesting relationship. It's a very special relationship between like the viewer and the streamer. I don't think I've ever experienced anything like it as a viewer and fan of other streamers, and as a streamer myself. It's a very intimate fan relationship both ways. And it's something that I value very, very highly as kind of the facilitator of my own community. But yeah, like I said before, it's like, and especially like HC was saying too, it's like been a pandemic for the last 2 years, and there's been a lot of trauma over the last 2 years that people are desperate to share, and their normal emotional lifelines are not available to them. So it is natural to want to share with somebody that you feel a close connection to. But I think for the most part, boundaries are pretty well respected, at least within like my community and the communities that I kind of Venn diagram with, you know.
That's good. Nick, I want to ask you a bit more about your community as well, because, you know, it sounds like yours is very based on having a strong personal connection and also building up communities that don't necessarily get a whole lot of representation elsewhere. Hey, there's not necessarily a lot of content being made for those people to begin with, and that makes people connect to it much stronger. How do you navigate that?
It's been an interesting thing to navigate and introduce myself to, because it's not something that there is a how-to guide on. There's no how-to guide being a First Nations person on Twitch, that's for sure. Especially because there's been so many times over the last 3 years where I've had to learn something that just doesn't quite exist for myself. But yes, my community has had this real personal connection to my story and my identity, because they come to me to see that they're seeing something that they've never seen before, or that they only see very little of on the platform. And it's humbling and also terrifying.
Well, look, if you didn't take the responsibility seriously, I think that would be a bad thing in itself, right?
Yeah, it's been times, like we were just talking about boundaries, where that responsibility can become overwhelming for me, and I've had to learn the importance of breaks and stuff like that, because that's not something that I'd ever chased until Twitch, of course. As we went into the pandemic, it was actually really interesting, because we were going into the pandemic as well as this massive social change was happening. We saw a lot of people at rallies. We saw a lot of people doing movements like Black Lives Matter, all that sort of thing. And so suddenly I was actually projected onto a platform on multiple platforms, not just Twitch, where people were coming for me for information on like First Nations people and traumas and stuff like that. So I had people in my chat asking me question after question after question.
That's heavy, being asked to speak on behalf of your entire race, like all of your people. That's heavy.
Yeah, it's tough, and so I basically had to learn these things like I can't speak for everyone. I don't know and everything. All I can speak to you is from my heart and my whole soul. That is what I'm giving to you. It actually came to the point where boundaries, once again, I had to say to people, sometimes I had to be like, okay, I can't answer any more questions for you right now, but this is who I am. I am playing this video game on Twitch. From my perspective, wow, this is like a decolonized perspective you're getting right now. Enjoy it.
I love how much talk of boundaries there's been, and how I'm just getting that vibe that Twitch streaming is, setting you up with some great life skills too.
Yeah, it's
Um,
been interesting. I would say like I would say like one of the biggest like life skills that I've learned with boundaries is that there is a time and place for everything. And it's the time and place for everything is the space that you make it. That is your space, that is your time. You don't have to have it any other time.
I like that. We have a question from chat for HC. What made you want to get into streaming games?
Because I couldn't find representation of myself. I mean, I think as you get older, you're aware of the subtle ageism and lack of representation for older people. And that's particularly so in the gaming space and certainly in the streaming space. And although it's very much out of character for me to put myself in such a public space, I was really drawn to try and see if anyone would be interested chatting to an older gamer. I've been playing games since I was like 14 or 15, so a long time. And I'm 60 next birthday. I have no problem saying that. I'm quite proud. And I had a viewer come the first night, and I've had viewers ever since. And my community's, been growing in the last sort of 2 years. But I think it was a case of, well, if I can't find someone that's a little bit older and a little bit chill, maybe others are looking for a similar spot. And apparently that was the case. Mind you, I thought I would just have older people come in. No, that's not the case at all. I've got so many wonderful, unique people in the community. It's not just older. But yeah, that's the reason I couldn't find someone like me.
I absolutely love that, because I am a really, really, really big believer in the fact that representation matters. I think that it can change people's trajectories. I think that it fulfills us in a way that you don't really understand until you don't have representation, and then you do. I always tell the story of like the first time I saw, I think it was a bank ad. I think it was an ad for like ANZ or one of those. That had an Asian family in it, and it was just a series of kind of home movie style videos of this little Asian girl growing up. And they had some cheesy bag thing that was like, we're here for you, support your life or whatever. But I remember it came on TV and my entire family froze, and we all just watched the entire thing because we had never seen something that looked like our own home movies on TV before. And
Fabulous.
it wasn't a conscious thing, but it's mind-blowing.
And I think too, I put a tweet out a little while ago. I was given, I won't name the brand, but a brand sent me some product, and I put a tweet out saying, thank you for seeing me. And I did a lovely picture of myself with grey hair and the product. And I wrote to them and I said, thank you for considering an older player, because you see a lot of stereotypical type of gamers being given products and promotions and different things. And they wrote back and they said, of course we see you. And I thought that was wonderful. And thank you again to that company.
That's really lovely. And I think that, that is true, that often gaming is seen as a space where there's a lot of fringe people and a lot of people that find their community in gaming, whereas they may not have much community outside of it. But at the same time, it has started to happen where very similar kind of people have started to float to the top of streaming. And so to have other voices continue to be championed in that space is really important.
I think so.
Another question coming through from chat, and this is for everyone. They want to know about the effectiveness of online connections, communities, and Twitch as a form of social media to make change or to prompt change. And anyone can jump in on this.
I think it's actually been really interesting because I've on my platform on Twitch specifically, like I really want to like make sure that I'm fundraising, that I'm making change in certain areas and stuff. And one of the big times that I remember actually doing a lot of work was during the Australian bushfires. A lot of people were raising money for the New South Wales Rural Fire Service, and it was very interesting because I never saw so many people all over the world gather together on these platforms to raise money for the bushfires. And it showed that people wanted to make change. People wanted to see things change. And then I saw that that there was a space for people wanting to contribute to a betterment of society in a way. They wanted to see happiness, basically, where they would find it a bit harder. And so after that, like I said, I was talking about Black Lives Matter before. People were starting to come onto the platform to chase a lot of people of color, like a lot of streamers of color, actually. They wanted to see these streamers because they realized that they had a story to tell. But not only that, they realized that these people were the change makers. They were the leaders of change. So yeah, interesting.
I guess it's a bit of that combination of things we've talked about before, right? Of it's giving a platform to someone who normally may not have a platform, but then it's also giving a direct connection. So instead of, hearing a filtered voice, you are hearing directly from someone who has the experience that you may need to hear from.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of the things that I've seen recently is that people are coming to the right people for the information that they want. They're not going through the filters, like you said. They're actually going to the sources. They're actually going to the people that know. It's actually been quite beautiful to see a lot of people actually approaching First Nations people lately, especially our First Nations streamers on Twitch, and actually asking them asking them something because they are the voice that can speak on certain things. They are the voice that can speak on those issues that people want to talk about.
Thank goodness we're leaving behind the time of I have a friend who, as being the like authority on speaking on behalf of any particular group. Horty and Eilish, did you have anything you wanted to add on this one?
I just had a small anecdote that I thought, sorry,
I love
HC.
anecdotes.
I spend a lot of time in a streamer community. This streamer's name is Granny, and she is fabulous, and I love her so much. Something that she always says, because on Twitch sometimes, well, not sometimes, it's inevitable that if you stream on Twitch for an extended period of time, there will be people that come into your chat that are mean or trolly or whatever, and every different streamer has a different way of dealing with it, whether it's to, whatever. But something that I really love about Granny's channel is that every time somebody comes, and she's got a really big channel, so it happens fairly frequently that someone will come into her channel and be like, blah, 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 say something mean or whatever. She always says, you know what, don't pounce on them, don't say anything nasty back, just treat them with kindness. And obviously this isn't always going to work because, you never know who you're going to come up against on the internet. But for the general troll, treat them with kindness, treat them nicely, because it's the first time she's a member of the LGBTQIA+ community. it may be the first time that that person has ever met somebody like me and they don't know what to do. So just for that one person, just treat them kindly, even if they're being awful and nasty. And if they continue to be awful and nasty, then do what needs to be done. But I've seen so many people who have come in with such aggression and such like gross trolly comments kind of become converted into like a fan, an ally, a friend within this community because of the strength of the community and because of the strength of the result of the streamer. And I think like Twitch does such fabulous, like Twitch streamers do such fabulous work for raising money and charity, and it's just amazing and uplifting voices that otherwise wouldn't be uplifted. But I think sometimes like the really grassroots, like fully changing somebody's actual perspective on something does happen as well, like truly one-on-one, like genuine human connection over the internet is like something that I think blew my mind the most when I first started spending time on Twitch.
And Horty, what was it that you wanted to add?
I was going to say, I'm glad you brought up parasocial relationships because we talk about it a bit, and I try and educate, especially new streamers, about it. And as you said, parasocial used to be one way, but now it's like 1.5, because you are giving some of yourself back. You are, connecting with people. And because of the pandemic and we've lost a large part of our connection, I think streaming has been vital for mental wellness, not only for the community, but for the streamers themselves. And I think a lot of people forget that for some folks, whether it's a pandemic or not, social connection is very difficult. And so that streaming space gives people an opportunity to connect with other people in a space that isn't so difficult and doesn't require too much of them. And I think a lot of credit is not given for that. I think it really is important to remember that for some people, it's very difficult to connect socially away from a virtual space. So I think it's really important for that reason. It's been really good.
This is another question from chat, open to everyone. How does the panel feel about the representation of streamers in recent popular culture? I personally can't think of any specific things that I've seen that talk about streamers. I know there's a lot of like very awkward gamer representation in mainstream media, but have you seen anything, and what do you think of it?
I recently saw a very interesting article, and I cannot for the life of me remember what platform it was on, so I'm no use to anyone, sorry. But basically, I think the general perception of streamers in mainstream media is very similar to how YouTubers were perceived maybe like 10 years ago, in that they don't do anything. They get paid millions of dollars to just sit around and play games, like whatever. Whereas like the actual reality of trying to kind of have a job in social media, which I guess streaming and YouTube and all of that falls under that umbrella, is extremely difficult. It is very hardworking, and quite frankly, only a crazy person would choose to do it. No offense, everyone. Like, I think you're all wonderful and great. I am also crazy. But like, I saw this article that was talking about how difficult streaming actually really is. And it was talking about, it was interviewing streamers who, had back problems because they sat for 12 hours a day streaming. Streamers who were afraid to go to the bathroom or eat because they were going to lose viewers. And talking about how since things have opened up, since the vaccines have started rolling out, a lot of streamers have noticed like a severe dip in viewers and income and things like that. And I think that article will always stay with me, even though I can't remember where it was, because it was the first time that I saw the actual, like, streaming is so wonderful and I love it, but there is a side to it that is like hard, and it was the first time that I'd seen that hard side of things in the mainstream media for the general public to kind of be like, oh, that sounds bad, you know.
Look, I work in TV. I work as a presenter a lot because I work in games. A lot of people think, oh, streaming is an absolutely natural progression. You should start streaming. That's going to be what you do next. And I have tried streaming, and I have to say, it is hard yards. Like, it is a completely different beast, and it is incredibly difficult. And I have so much respect for anyone that can do it on a regular basis, because I don't think that I'm that person. It is a different kind of tiring. And, you know, I can't fathom how difficult it is as well to go into that as something serious or something full-time when you do have to grapple with the kind of very fickle nature of the beast as well. Another question that we had from the audience, Eilish, has Twitch grown your audience like you had hoped?
I'm sorry, I feel like I'm taking over the panel real estate. Has it grown my audience like I'd hoped? Yes, short answer. Because the thing about not being able to tour for an artist like me, an independent artist, I would grow my audience in Australia at a grassroots level, touring around the country playing shows, and obviously I couldn't do that due to the pandemic. So honestly, my goals were to kind of maintain my current audience and to, you know, maybe like reach some new fans kind of within the country. I really hadn't thought internationally at all. But the way that I've been able to reach, and I've been trying to tell my musician friends this, and I haven't really successfully gotten through to many of them, but like the fact that I've been able to reach people in Canada, US, England, like so many different, New Zealand, like so many places, regular members of my community keep coming back from, it's like, it's kind of mind-blowing because I've never played any shows over there, and yet I still have this like fan base in all over the world, which I never expected or never, you know, set out to achieve. So yeah, it's been like honestly quite amazing. And the Twitch level of like fandom is like a whole new like level of commitment and engagement and like loyalty. It's really remarkable, and I'm very, very grateful.
Well, look, hopefully if everything goes well and borders start to open again, now you're quite well set up to go do a world tour maybe. Why not?
Well, fingers crossed, fingers crossed.
Another question for all our panelists. As streamers, do you consider yourselves entertainers, or do you feel like that is only part of what you do, especially with community building? Let's start with you, Nick.
I don't consider myself an entertainer. I consider myself an educator in regards. Like, I'm not a teacher. I don't have a teaching degree. But
what about edutainment?
Edutainment. I mean, I educate people while playing games. Edutainment. Oh, sorry, my headphones came out. There we go. So it's actually been really fun because I had to understand that what I'm best at is explaining things, is teaching people things. And when it came to it, it was so phenomenal because I kept telling myself, I am not an entertainer. I am not an entertainer. But people were coming to me, and they weren't coming for the entertainment. Sure, they get a few laughs out of what I do or what I react to things and stuff, but they were coming and they were seeing they saw that I was able to answer questions or educate them in things that they never even thought of, even without even asking a question. Like, it'll just happen naturally. And I think there's this really interesting approach that people have with Twitch. A lot of people think that it's just for fun, like it's just entertainment purposes, and it can be. There is a lot of amazing entertainers on Twitch, but I think in recent years it's shown that a lot of people are approaching Twitch with the different mindset that they want to learn. Not just with gamers, but there's such a variety of channels on Twitch now. Like people are actually educating, like lots of informative channels, a lot of cooking channels, for all different topics, and yeah, I stray away from entertainment, but I gotta say, edutainment is a very good term.
You can steal that one as well.
Another one for the shirt. It's gonna be a busy
Exactly.
shirt.
How about you, Horty? Do you see yourself as an entertainer?
No. I don't think I'll ever see myself as an entertainer. We have this saying in my community that I'm literally having a cup of coffee and a couple of biscuits and a couple of friends around. They're not allowed to tell me how many people are watching. I actually turn off the numbers. I don't want to know how many people are with me, because I find it quite. Because I do know that once someone said, "Oh, you've got 1,500 people in today," and it really put me a little bit off center a lot, because I'm relatively quiet generally, and so I see myself more as a place where people can come. The motto of our community is "Be kind, be you," so we promote kindness and we promote being yourself. We don't have channel rules, for example, like a lot of people have rules of their channel. We have values. We have values of our community very clear. And so you need to be aligned with our values. And if you are unkind, then we ask you to leave. I don't have a policy of having any tolerance for that. It's zero tolerance. So I don't think it's an education. I think it's more, I don't really know how. It's just a space. I just create a space, and I'm just my genuine self in that space up to a point. There's still those boundaries. People don't see all of me. But it's just a space to come in. Like you'd go and have a cup of coffee with someone with a couple of biscuits. That's pretty much what it is. We do also have gaming, and we talk a little bit. I'm an advocate for some mental health organisations, so that space is there as well. But it really is just a place I'm going to go and chill with Horty and see what she's playing today.
That makes me want to come hang out. I just have this like lovely image of when your friend is gonna come have you over, and they've like cleaned the place, and they've put on a nice candle, and they've got the blankets out, and they're like, we don't have to talk to each other. We can both just sit and chill, but enjoy each other's company.
Actually, I have a lot of lurkers. I have a lot, and some people have been lurking since I started, and I think some of them have spoken maybe once or twice, but they still come. And that's okay, because I'm more than happy to have people just come and sit and listen.
I love that. How about you, Eilish? Are you an entertainer?
I think yes, in like the most like dictionary definition of the word entertainer. Like absolutely, I am. I was an entertainer before I started streaming. So I mean, entertainer is like an interesting word, because I feel like I should be like wearing a top hat or something. But like
you can start. You can do that.
Maybe I should snazz up the stream a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think in 2021 though, the concept of the word entertainer is like kind of shifting into like, I don't love this term, but like the influencer space. Like I remember I had a very kind of interesting conversation with a member of my team like a year ago, who was kind of saying like, oh, we need to start looking at you more as like a personality rather than like a entertainer or like a musician or an artist or whatever. Because I was streaming, and because I like have a Twitter account where I like just tweet randomly, so I think that's kind of interesting, and that's where like the boundaries thing comes back in again, because it's like, well, if me just being me is entertaining and that is an entertainer, then where do I get to just be me for myself?
I love the energy of almost like, what am I, a joke to you? Does that mean that I'm a joke?
I think, honestly, sometimes I am a joke to my community, which is fine, because that's like, that doesn't cross my boundaries. But like, yeah, it's very interesting. But yeah, yes, I am an entertainer. Yes.
And that is a wonderful thing. Entertainment is needed. And I think that, the variety of your answers is actually really, really delightful because it just goes to show that there isn't a box of what a streamer is. There isn't a specific thing that you need to be in order to be a streamer or be a successful streamer. It really is finding what is uniquely you and putting that out there. And I think that's really lovely. Another question from chat. Do you feel there is a long-term future in streaming? What kind of toll does it take on you? And this is an interesting one as well. And I do want you to go into the long hours of streaming because I heard something like 4 hours is kind of the minimum stream that you sort of need to do in order to like float to the top of the algorithm. Is that true? No one knows. That's okay. Maybe I pulled that number out of the air.
So when I first started streaming, I would do 2 streams a day, 7 days a week, because I had nothing else to do. And those streams would
Love
be
yourself.
6 hours long. Yeah, exactly. Love myself. So I would be streaming 12 hours a day. Do not recommend. I quickly learnt the toll of Twitch and what it takes on you. It is another level of burnout. A lot of people have no idea the things that you feel when that burnout hits. That I'm just gonna call it Twitch burnout. When it hits, it is painful and it is depressing. It's when I started to actually, take my own health seriously. I realized that a lot of people were pining for like the 4 to 5 hour streams, because and I noticed that a lot of people would actually come in at hour 3. So at least for myself, because I would stream at prime time and all that, and it's the long hours. Even just thinking about them now just fills me with dread. Long hours on Twitch fills me with dread because I remember that burnout stage. I remember the toll that Twitch can take on you if you don't take your mental health and your own physical health seriously.
But what is long hours for you? Because for some people, like 6-hour stream might be standard. For others, it might be the longest thing they've ever heard of. What do you consider long?
I recall back to I used to play a lot of Sea of Thieves, and Sea of Thieves is a game that you can get lost in. It's a pirate game, and for me, I remember accidentally. This is actually quite funny. I accidentally streamed for 13 hours. I was meant to stream for 4. I looked at the clock. It was 3 a.m. Yeah,
bed.
Exactly.
No one told you?
No,
No
like
one in chat was like, "Hey."
I think everyone went to sleep at that point. Everyone was asleep themselves. So long hours for me is anything past 6 hours. That's. I want to go to bed now. Good night, everyone.
How about everyone else? Porty, how about you? Do you see a long-term future in streaming, and what kind of toll does it take?
For me, I think I'm going to try and keep, for me personally, I'm going to try and keep some semblance of streaming, even though sort of my other work is starting to, encroach on that. I think streaming as on the platform, on Twitch, I think that will continue and that'll continue to evolve. I think recently there's been some pretty nasty things going on that in terms of hate raids and a lot of hatred on Twitch, particularly directed toward marginalized creators, and Twitch are trying to improve their services. And so I think whilst ever that keeps happening, I think streaming will continue. Is it viable? I think what Eilish was talking about earlier, people thinking that streaming is such a fun gig. You get to sit, play games, you get paid a lot of money. There is so many, if you worked out how much you earn per hour, and we're not going to talk about money, but there's so many hours put in, not just streaming and the technical side and what you'll play, it's marking yourself. It's like, imagine a classroom of people putting their hand up saying, look at me, look at me. And it really is that way. You need to market yourself, whether it's to the gaming, the devs or whatever it is, the content that you're creating. It's a really hard business to be in. And then you've got the other social platforms and Instagram and TikTok and keeping up with Twitter and what do you tweet and when do you tweet it. It's exhausting. It's quite exhausting. I think my longest stream was 9.5 hours. Now my longest stream at a time would be 4. I very rarely go over 4. I average around, I get up at 3:30 in the morning to stream. So I stop work at our business hours when we start work at 9. So that's when I stop streaming and click over. I think it will continue. I think streaming, it'd be nice if people were more aware about what streaming was rather than what they think it is, and give it a bit more, a bit more respect, because goodness me, it's tough. Now that I've experienced it for a couple of years, I bow down to people who do it full time. It's just so difficult.
I stream for my TV job for 2 hours every fortnight, as like a part of the community that we build around the show. And even that is brutal. I do not think I have ever done one where I did not stop and immediately have a headache, or have a headache while it was going on. So
It's taxing.
again, just so much respect for you all. How about you, Eilish? Do you feel like streaming is going to be a long-term thing for you?
I have so many thoughts about this. I'm going to try and be eloquent. I do think it will be a long-term thing for me. I say that in the midst of a self-enforced break that I had to give myself because of burnout. I'm currently on like a 2-week break, and then I'm streaming again briefly, and then I'm having another break over Christmas. So, and it's absolutely terrifying to have a break on Twitch, can I just say, because you worry about losing subscriptions, you worry about losing followers, you worry about losing views when you come back. It's like, it's really terrifying to do it. But honestly, you have to take the gamble, otherwise you will experience that terrible burnout that Nick was talking about, which I am currently experiencing a semblance of. For me as a musician, like I stream a lot of music on my stream. I make music, I perform music, and gaming is like a relatively small part of my streaming. It's like the fun thing that we do at the end of the music section, you know? So for me, I remember I got that advice that was like, people don't start showing up to your stream until like 2 hours in. You have to stream for 3 to 4 hours minimum. Like otherwise it's not even worth it. And I was just like, I can't sing for that amount of time. Like that is not humanly possible for me to do that multiple times a week. And it's just not going to work. So I had to come up with like, first I started doing shorter streams, and then that didn't quite work. And then I started doing longer streams where I'd just talk for an hour at the start, and then I'd start singing, and then we'd play a game after. So it's like things like that you have to do to like make it make sense. But the long hours, despite all of that, no matter what you do to make it make sense, are exhausting. They are truly full body exhaustion, mental and physical. And it's really important to look after yourself if you are considering doing that or in the midst of doing it.
Great advice.
I love how everyone has kind of said it is so draining, and draining in a really, really specific way, yet you all keep doing it. Why?
Of work, I took 5 weeks off, and people were mentioning in other streams, have you seen HC? Is she back yet? I really need her to come back. And although there are those boundaries and I'm aware of the parasocial relationships, I came, I could have stopped then. I could have said, look, I might just end it. I don't think I'll come back. But I also missed them. I missed hearing how they're doing. And, most of my community are not in Australia. Most of them are around the world, other countries. And I just missed checking in on them and seeing how they were doing, what games they were playing. So that's why I keep doing it.
How about you other two? Explain yourselves.
I think it's the community. Same, definitely. I actually took a 6-month break from streaming right after I fundraised for the bushfires. I took a 6-month break. I said, this has been great, but I need to focus on my mental health. And it was during that 6 months that Um, I realized uh, while I was working on myself and working to get well, um, I realized how much my I I feel like there's places that I've gone like where sometimes I take my community for granted and the blessings that they give me as people, and I realized how much they meant to me. I realized not only how much they meant for me, but how much I meant to them as an educator. And it was through other platforms, like because I started doing a lot of content on Instagram and TikTok and all those sorts of places, that I realized that people wanted my voice, and I realized that they wanted to be part of that community that I was developing. And through and through, it's the community that keeps me coming back over and over again.
Eilish, please tell me you have a less super lovely reason that you keep doing it. You just say something really awful, I don't know, you do it for the attention, or
Well, I do love attention, but
as an entertainer.
but it's the same for me. Like the people that I spend my time with, like we talk about like long hours and that it's really difficult. And like, yeah, it is really difficult, but it's honestly an honor to do so because these people are so wonderful. Like, I don't know anyone who like it's very rare that somebody in my real life can make me like cry laughing through a computer screen. Like these people know me so well. They know my sense of humor. They know, and I know theirs. And we have a shared like language and in jokes, just like you would with any kind of friend. Like we're talking about parasocial relationships, but I'm just like totally, you know, in my little gushy community speech, I am throwing that out the window. I just think like it's very, very, very special. And it's the thing that keeps streamers coming back despite all of the things that make it really difficult.
Okay, fine. You're all nice people, I guess. How do you all preserve your own mental and emotional well-being when the negativity does, as we said, a little bit inevitably come your way? Um, do you want to continue streaming despite it?
I will stop if I need to stop for my mental health. I will stop my stream early. If my physical health is that I'm tired or I'm sore, I will say that's it for today. My community know if I'm not streaming, even if it's late notice, then I'm looking after myself. If I have to take time off, then they know that I'm looking after myself. And I say it back to them at the end of pretty much every stream. I say to them, remember, your self-care is not selfish. Be kind to be you. And I end my stream every single day, and they know that I mean it, and I tweet about it. Self-care is not prioritized enough, especially in the gaming and streaming space, especially there. It's just, have a thick skin kind of attitude a lot of the time, which is so detrimental. So for me, I will stop. I will stop if I need to, and they know that I'll come back. And I'm going to say, touch on something that Eilish said. It is really hard to not stream because you're worried about your numbers, you're worried about your viewers, you're worried about your subs, you're worried about your brands, or fear of missing out on that next big promotion. And that's I see that often when other streamers will put a message out on Twitter saying, "I'm really sorry, I have to not stream," and I think don't apologize. Go look after yourself and then come back. My thoughts on that.
How about you, Nick?
It's been one that I've had. It's something that I've had to learn. So I actually have a learning and mental disability, which makes it hard for me to understand certain things that come across in my chat. And it means that a lot of the mental health stuff happens a lot later than it should. So and like all of that stuff happening doesn't quite click for me until it's too late, and I'm actually in a very bad position, putting it in a very simple way. But it's for me, I recall actually, Horty, as you were talking, that once I streamed for 30 minutes and I realized what someone in chat had said, and I said, I have to end stream now, and I have to go. I have to go talk to friends. I have to go do what I need to do, type of thing. And I sometimes I remember that. I remember that moment as a changing moment for me on Twitch, because it was me realizing that my space is my space. Like, my community is there. But like we were talking about parasocial relationships for, as well as boundaries, a new boundary can be created at any single point in time. And for me, if my mental health needs it, there is a new boundary right then and there.
I play a game called Dota 2, which is an online competitive game, and I have a couple mates that I play with and stuff. And once one of my mates said that, like, the day that he realized if he wasn't having a good time, he could just leave the game, was really, really freeing for him. But I was still like, you can't leave the game. You're in the game, you can't leave it. But it's absolutely true. Like, you can actually just close it and walk away and go do a thing that's good for you, instead of staying there and pushing on in a thing that's not being good for you.
Yeah, you don't need to push.
Eilish, did you have anything that you wanted to add on this one?
The only thing I will say is that it's so comforting as someone who is just like agonized over like taking a break. It's like very comforting to hear two very established, successful streamers being like, yeah, it's good to take breaks. It's actually, you should do it. So yeah, it's important to do so, and I preach that constantly, but to myself it's a totally different story. And I think that it's important to try and change that self-talk.
Well, I guess it also doesn't just change your self-talk, it changes the culture around streaming, because if people who are streaming see other streamers say, I'm so sorry, I have to take a break because I've broken both my legs, but I promise I'll be streaming tomorrow, it's kind of like that sets the expectation that everyone should be like that, and that's not what anyone wants, I don't think. Doesn't sound like a fun time. Another question from the chat regarding parasocial relationships. How have you tried to build and foster healthy relationships with community members without crossing borders? Eilish, I want to throw this one to you first, because you did talk about how connected you are to your community, and how sometimes maybe you do throw the sense of it being streamer and watch out the window and you all just feel like friends.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, the feeling within my community when things are working really well and everyone's like bantering and we're all laughing together and it's really fun, that's a byproduct of boundaries that are working really well for me, I think, because everyone's having a wonderful time. Everyone feels included. The lurkers are watching on and having a lovely time, feeling like they're having a social experience, because obviously they are. And people who feel like chatting are joining in, and it's really fun, and I'm feeling really good, and everything's wonderful. That's because no one's crossing the boundaries that shouldn't be crossed, if that makes sense. And I think like it's very tricky. And you know what, the number one thing that I think has helped me in terms of like learning how to kind of, because I'm like a bit of a like if somebody is coming to me with a mental health problem, I'm like very affected by it, and I want to help, and I want to do this and I want to do that, without necessarily realizing that I, you know, inadvertently maybe giving like not good advice, or like because I'm not a professional, I don't know exactly how to like handle something in the best way for this person who's looking for help. The best thing that I did in terms of learning how to put up boundaries was talking to other streamers. And that might not be like when you're just starting out, like that might be hard to try and find people to relate to. In that case, I would say just spend time in other people's streams and see how they relate to their mods and how they relate to community members and all that stuff. Because that like streamer community I've found to be very important. And even just like somebody who I, you know, watch and spend a lot of time in their stream saying to me like in a DM or whatever, being like, oh, I know exactly like what you're talking about. If you ever need to talk about it, just let me know. Like even just that makes you feel so much better about it. It makes you feel validated, because it's very isolating when someone's like crossing a boundary and you feel quite alone. You don't know how to like respond to it. So yeah, that streamer community is really helpful, and that is like my number one tip.
I think it can also be difficult to realize that you can set those boundaries and that the discomfort that you're feeling is the result of a boundary being crossed, and you are in a position to like do something about it, especially if you are just starting out.
Totally.
What about you, Horty and Nick?
I think one of the biggest fears that new streamers, and I still kind of consider myself fairly new, but I'm probably getting a bit, not so much now. So I try and share. Sometimes the sharing is, and I'm going to say everything that Eilish said is true. Go and watch what other streamers do. Go and see how they interact. Go and see how they might respond to boundaries being crossed, because often you can see it or hear it. But I think for me, new streamers think if I put boundaries in, I won't grow. I won't put boundaries in yet because it might turn people off. That's okay. It's okay. Your community, think about when you start streaming what you want your community to look like. Who would you like to hang with? Your community will come regardless of whether or not you have boundaries. If the boundaries scare you, think about that you're protecting them as much as you. It's really important. It's a two-way street with that. And so for me, I'm always establishing new boundaries as I grow and my community gets bigger. And it's got really big in the last 3 months. I have to recheck, and I meet with my mods regularly. I let them know if there's a change regularly. And so it's about being aware of what your boundaries are. They're dynamic. They're going to be dynamic. If you're going to keep streaming and you're going to keep growing, you need to be dynamic with that and be comfortable with it. It's okay to have them. It's more than okay to have them. It's essential to have them.
I feel like Horty's just teaching me life lessons via like lessons learned in Twitch streaming. It's wonderful. And Nick, how do you build and foster healthy relationships without crossing boundaries?
It's been a journey. I will say that. The thing that I learned is the biggest thing that would add to my Twitch burnout was having no boundaries. That is what I learned. Because I would allow too much of my energy to go to places that it shouldn't have been going. And that means I had no recovery time. In particular, I realized that putting in boundaries was the best thing. When it came to the parasocial relationships, it was me putting in stuff like, okay, so after stream, I have to tune out now. Like, I'll probably have like my community like chat and like Discords and stuff like that, or all that. But I don't take any like private messages after a certain like time if like people need to reach out or anything and all that. Just so, because that's my rest time and all that. Making sure that I know what my rest time is. But in acknowledging the things that have helped me, I also have to acknowledge the times that I failed. I have like, there's been several times where I've failed people on my boundaries, and I've had to say to them that I'm sorry. Obviously this has become too much for me, but this is my fault because I did not put the boundaries in place. And that's something that you have to learn is responsibility of your boundaries and responsibility of those parasocial relationships, because while those people are coming to you and that those types of people can push on that, you got to keep reminding yourself that you're the person that needs to say, okay, stop now, or okay, I need to take a break now, and okay, this is my rest time now.
Hearing all of that, Nick, just makes me feel like you've never ghosted someone.
Yeah.
Like you've always done the right thing and sent the message being like, I'm sorry, I'm not interested.
I have never like I think when I was younger I ghosted a lot of people, but then I realized that like it's better for me to say to them, look, it's okay. I don't want to do this or that.
Yeah. So how do you think all of these massive 50K plus streamers make it to where they are? We'll start with you, Nick, because we're on you.
Yeah, that is a really big question. I think it comes down to a multiple of different things. It can be right place, right time. It can be personality. It can be comedy, like their comedy status. But I think it doesn't matter. Honestly, I think to me, hearing that question, it doesn't matter, because when I used to think about that a lot. I used to think about, why aren't they, how do I get to 50K? Why do they get to 50K? And why am I not at 50K? And all that. And it's a circle. It's a spiral of thinking, and it hurts your streaming, and it adds to and it's visible, and it adds to your own burnout. Right now, for me, it's focusing on the people that are here now, because they're the people that matter.
How about you, Horty? Do you have any thoughts on 50K streamers?
Look, I've seen 50K streamers with not many people chatting, with not many people engaging, and I've seen streamers that might have 1,000 followers, and I wouldn't want to leave their stream. The community is fabulous, the chat is fabulous, the whole feel of the stream is fabulous, and so I think they're just numbers. And I'm going to agree with Nick. I remember when I first started, I was checking my stats every week, comparing my stats, comparing where I was, how much I'd grown, how many followers I had. I was obsessed with the statistics. I don't do that as much. Still do it, but not as much, because it's not helpful. I'd rather work on my engagement and how I'm presenting and how I'm, am I being my genuine self? I keep saying to new streamers, be your genuine self. Be your genuine self. So for me, look, I think being 50,000 would scare me. The numbers I have now scare me. But if, maybe it's a lot of hard work, a lot of long hours, a lot of unpaid hours, a lot of luck, right place, right time, like Nick said, but just numbers, just numbers.
Eilish, I'm once again gonna see if someone here will be the bad guy. Come on, entertainer. Just put it out there. You heaps just want that 50K, right?
If I knew how to get 50K, that would be sick. But to be 100% honest with you, I think Nick answered this question like perfectly and very eloquently. To be honest, like, I don't know. Like, it is truly, it's kind of like when, like, in my kind of original world, like when a song goes totally gangbusters, and it's like, I don't know why. No one knows why. It just did, And I think there's quite a little bit of like that in streamers that are like wildly successful. But I would like to say that similar to what Horty was saying, like some of my favorite streams are like small communities. Some of the best streams that I've enjoyed over the last couple of years have been with like 2 other people in the chat, and we're just like having a gorgeous time together, So yeah, just numbers.
That's fair. That's fair. You're all good people once again. All right. Is there a lot of pressure to play mainstream popular games to grow your stream and stay relevant? And I guess that also feeds into the question of, does staying relevant and growing your stream matter?
It's a tricky question. I streamed for the first year playing just one. I played World of Warcraft, and that's all I played. I was heavily promoted by Blizzard Entertainment, and so that was where I grew. And for a lot of reasons, I stepped away for a few months from Blizzard. A lot of personal reasons where I was feeling at the time, what I was feeling at the time. And I was in a position if I had to play a different game. And I thought, okay, what's current, what's new? And then I started to realize in my community, I asked them straight out, are you coming for this game or are you coming for me? I think I knew the answer. They were coming to chat to me. And now I've become more, and now I'm playing other games and other MMOs. And it really is, you need to be, if you do want to grow, you do need to be strategic. You can't go and play a game that no one has played in, 15, 20 years and expect massive growth. You may have some, you have a little niche, but you've got to be a little bit strategic. But on the whole, as your community grows, I think they're really there just for you. You'll change it up a little bit. I mean, I went out and bought Battlefield 2042. I've never played anything like that in my life.
Did you like it?
I haven't played it yet.
Okay.
but then again, I bought Resident Evil. I never play horror. Horror with Horty is now a very successful thing. Who knew? I think it's being aware am thinking, okay, do I want to dip my toe in this new game? Do I want to be in this new content? And just, it's scary though. It's scary, especially if you are in that building phase, or you think you're going to lose things, lose subs, lose numbers and followers. I think it's a bit of both, a bit of column A and column B.
Just build a really niche stream entirely around the original Transport Tycoon, only in the Sugar Town.
I really, really like Transport Tycoon. Don't tempt me.
Yeah.
I have something different Sunday, so maybe that will be it.
It's really good, and the Sugar one's so much fun. But anyway, I digress. Nick, how about you? Do you feel pressure to stay relevant with new games?
Yes. I think that I do. In fact, I used to give into the pressure. And it was expensive.
Games are expensive.
Games are expensive. And if you want to keep playing each new game that's popular, you are going to have an empty wallet and an empty bank account. Let me just say that. I used to give into that pressure a lot. And I realized that, like Horty said, I actually asked my community directly. I was like, do you come for the game or do you come for me? In my own words, of course. And of course, they said they came for me. They just wanted to hang out, they wanted to chat, and they wanted to learn. And that's what they saw the most. I think if you're approaching Twitch, you really got to ask yourself what you're most focused on. Of course, a lot of people want that 50K like we were talking about before. Everyone wants to be the big numbers when they're starting out. If you're focused on growth, always be asking your community what they like, because it's interesting when I say that though, because what your community may like might be something that you don't like, and that's also boundaries. It's finding that blend of what works for you and what works for your community, and that happens when you just chat with them and just have a yarn.
Eilish, do you chase that sweet new game freshness?
Well, it's kind of funny because I was never a gamer, like ever. I played like Zoombinis when I was a kid, and that was
that is a great game. That is a gamer.
It is a fantastic game, and I would take that to my grave. It is a great game. But part of my whole like, oh my God, I can't possibly sing for 4 hours straight thing was me realizing that Twitch is actually a website where people stream games, and perhaps that is something that maybe I should start doing, if only just to like rest my voice in my little piano fingers for a bit. So I don't really like feel pressure to play the new games, but I do more so feel like a kind of obligation to play the games that my community are interested in, which is lucky because I'm kind of interested in them as well. Like, I'm a big horror fan. I love Dead by Daylight. I love the Resident Evil franchise. And it's been very fun, essentially learning how to be a gamer through like going through the Resident Evil games with my community.
Yeah, his streaming turned you into a gamer, would you say?
Oh yeah, I'm like full, like, I mean, kind of. Like, I used to, I'm still terrible. Like, I'm the worst person ever to, touch.
That's fine. I am too. It's fine.
Yeah. But I used to make all my music on a Mac and never thought about getting a PC. And then I, got into streaming, and then I decided to invest in a PC for streaming purposes, and then I was able to download Dead by Daylight. Then I got Resident Evil. I started playing them on the stream, and now I play them in my spare time, which is something that I never saw myself doing ever. But honestly, it's been so much fun, and my community laughs at me so much because I'm just like, it's just like a movie, but you're like in the movie, and it's like, yeah. Have you heard of this crazy website called Twitch where people play games all the time?
I love it.
Yeah, it's a bit different, but yeah.
Incredible. This is probably going to be our last question. What do you think about Twitch's inherent culture? With hate raids gaining, lots of people feel unsafe. What would you like to see change, if anything? Horty, you did mention hate raids earlier.
Yeah,
so
look, I think I think I'd like Twitch to keep listening and to keep working. I know that they are. I'd like them to work a bit faster, and I know it's difficult, but just to keep listening to the streaming community. They're the ones at the front. They're the ones that are seeing what's going on. They're the ones that are seeing the hate raids or seeing a change in behavior. So if Twitch can keep on top of that and listen to the content creators, I think that would be awesome. And to keep challenging it, to keep having people like us, people that are perhaps not stereotypical on the platform, to keep doing what we're doing and to keep changing what the look of streaming is, I think.
Nick?
Yeah, definitely. I think Twitch needs to listen, same. And with listening, also need to do better in that regard. Always keep doing better. Always being allowed to be challenged by the streaming community. They're not always going to get it right. No one gets it right. But even then, acknowledging the wrongdoing and saying, okay, well, let's keep listening and let's keep doing better. Because, you know, like in acknowledging that a lot of people are terrified, and like I was scared for quite some time on Twitch about the hate raids and all of that, like my mental health. But I think inherently, at the core of it, listening is what needs to happen. And the more that, just like Horty said, having people that are from diverse, different backgrounds, different streamers that you don't usually see, changes the culture. Us as individuals change the culture just by having our face on the screen. Representation matters, and so does listening.
I will believe that representation matters till the day I die. Eilish, how about you? How have you found the Twitch culture and hate raids and things? Have you ever had one?
I've been follow botted before, which was really unpleasant. Due to the color of my skin, I am not often an immediate target for hate raids and things like that. But I know a lot of people who are, and I think it's very important for Twitch to listen, like our other panelists have said. And I think it's also important that they are confronted with the experiences of marginalized creators on their platform. I think they need to have these uncomfortable conversations. And I think it's very easy for such a huge company to kind of just press on as normal when a lot of their creators are suffering. And to their credit, I don't think they're pressing on as normal. I think they are trying to do something about it. But I also understand why these marginalized creators are frustrated, because there was a period there where it felt like Twitch weren't doing anything. And if they were, that wasn't enough, because it was still happening, and it's still happening to this day. So yeah, it's awful. It's truly awful, especially because we just got done talking about how brilliant it is to see marginalized creators on the platform doing such amazing things, and to think that they're being discouraged to stream is truly horrendous. So I really hope that Twitch is listening and continues to do so.
We do have time for one more quick fun one. Favorite Twitch emote? Eilish?
Oh my God. I kind
It's a
of
real
like,
put you on the spot one.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're going for like specific streamer emotes, but like in terms of the general ones, I really like the girl who's like the high one, you know, and she's like, it's like she's so friendly.
I will also accept favorite emote that you have for your own stream.
Oh, I have one that's like, I used to have this huge water bottle that was like 2.2 liters, and everyone was obsessed with it because it was so big and so stupid. So I got an emote made out of it. And every time like my community are like, hydrate, time to hydrate, they're like, big bottle emote, like, it's like, yeah, I love it.
I love that. How about you, Horty?
Okay, well, I use a purple heart everywhere. One of my favorite general heart emotes is a purple one. But my own personal emote, I have an animated chicken butt that's wagging its tail. So it's shake your tail feather. So I have a shake your tail feather emote, and it's quite popular.
I love that. Bums are funny. And Nick, how about you? Favorite emote?
I bypass all of my own personal emotes. I always go back to lol. That is, I keep using lol to this day. It is every time I'm having a laugh in someone's stream, I just type in LUL, and that is my emotion.
Well, look, classics are a classic for a reason. So I back that. Thank you so much. That brings us to the end of our event. Thank you to Nick, HC, and Eilish for being so open, so honest, so wholesome, so real with us. We really, really appreciate it. The chat has loved it. I have loved it. And I think that, it's a huge testament to your own streams and everything that you're doing, that you can come out here and be really, really genuine. It's been lovely. A big thanks to State Library of Western Australia for putting on this event, and also to our lovely audience for joining us and participating, for sending in your questions. They prompted such great conversation. And, most importantly, I had a great time. And so I thank you for giving me questions that allowed me to have a great time. I hope you have a lovely rest of your evening. Bye for now.